waves.
2 more hours of the warning. It certainly isn't the wind that they were saying.
Right. Yeah, I have some outdoor furniture outside, so I was a little concerned about that, but it's pretty well hunkered down. Maybe some plants can fall over, but I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be as bad as they said.
Well, it's better than the alternative.
It's true.
Yep.
Katie, I'm making you a co-host now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll share. I have slides.
Hmm.
And before you start, I should call attendance.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
It's 3 people here.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
quite
maybe-
6.
Maybe people got caught up with the weather. Who knows? Yeah, I
Take
had
some
trouble.
time to start the webinar, and hopefully we at least see some attendees joining us.
Okay. Here's Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Beverly.
How you doing?
Hanging in there.
Yeah, aren't we all? You're sitting in a different place today. Usually I see the vacuum cleaner behind you.
No, I just moved the vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
Everyone comments on that for some reason. I don't know why.
Hey, everybody has one. It's not like it's out of place or weird. It's in your home and whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
How you doing, Zach?
Good. How are you guys doing?
All right. Give me a
Yeah.
bite of that. What are you eating?
Almonds.
Ah,
But I'll mute my chewing. Are you doing all right? Feeling good?
all right. I think I need a new knee.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I had fallen in January, and I've been going to an orthopedic doctor at Methodist and doing different things. I got gel shots and cortisone shots. You didn't hear me screaming?
I did. I wasn't gonna say anything. My cousin just had her knee cap replaced instead of having the whole knee replaced.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you can ask about that. 'Cause that
Oh,
might be
the
an
rain is
alternative.
coming.
Good, that better be, because they were supposed to go to the Mets game and they postponed it, and I was like, why?
It came down like crazy. Jeremy and I were talking about it a few moments ago, that it wasn't raining. They predicted it would rain all day, but it wasn't raining. Anyway, I'm going to the hospital for special surgery.
Done here on 39th?
No, in Manhattan on the east side.
Mm-hmm.
So folks, just a reminder, we are webcasting. You may not want to give out personal information at this point.
Okay, thank you. Can always count on you. Thank you, Jeremy.
So as they say in hockey, it's just a lower body injury.
Well, I'm a short person and I fell. I fell, just on my knees. And this is what I got. I got a torn meniscus in both. The right leg is worse than the left.
Bummer.
Yep. Anyway, we'll see how that goes.
All right, folks, thank you. I can see Christina Lam has joined. We've got, okay, great. And I know at least one committee member who said they're going to be late. But this looks, we'll give one more minute, Jeremy. We'll do attendance. All right. This looks good. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. I think we could do attendance, Jeremy. I think this sounds good.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Seeing everybody, I'm going to mute everybody. Committee members, when I call your name, please unmute yourself, acknowledge your name, and then mute yourself again. Board members, if you are not a member of the committee, I'm not going to call your name, but I am going to write your name down. Let's start with Catherine Walsh.
Present.
Thank you. Nicholas Azadian.
Present.
Thank you. Stacy Boyd. Gladys Bruno. John Fontillis. Cynthia Gonzalez. Christina Lem.
I'm here.
Thank you. Sam Sierra.
Hi, President. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Zach Jacy. Zach.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was
Thank
playing
you.
with my Apple Pencil.
Cesar Zuniga.
Present.
Thank you. Roll has been called.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know that there are a couple of committee members that are still joining, so they'll come a little bit later. Great. Okay. I am going to share my screen. I have an update on the agenda just to walk everybody through. And I know we've got folks who are still joining. So let me see if I can do this successfully. Share screen. And it should be this one. And then I'll go back. Okay, great. Thank you. Then I'll make it full screen. Okay, so this is the updated agenda, just in terms of, sorry, here we go. So thanks everyone for joining the Community Board 7 Special Subcommittee on Last Mile Trucking Facilities. So updated agenda. We had the change here is we're going to spend a little bit of time. We've got some folks we've got Christina is coming in from Alexa Vielas's office to give an update on a letter and anything else that she would like to add. And then I will also talk through, so I'll go first and I'll talk through a little bit of some updates on legislative pieces. Then we'll go committee members to review and discuss the text. And one of the main things we're trying to do today is the request that has come our way to support the Last Mile Coalition special text amendment. So again, I want to thank everyone for rejoining because I came up in the last call and we've got a bunch of reps here as well. And then we'll have public comment if anyone wants to do any public comment, and then actually have a vote by this committee. There's the full community board meeting on Wednesday. So anything that we discuss here today will be applicable for Wednesday's meeting. I just wanted to say it's our anniversary, our 1-year anniversary of convening this subcommittee. So it's been a year. May 6th, 2021 was our first meeting. So here we are a year later, and we can kind of reflect on that and think about what kind of progress we have seen and things that we still really urgently need, and figuring out what the best way forward is. And there's a couple of things brewing, but I just wanted to acknowledge it's a year of this group of people meeting to convene and push this issue forward. There should be in your inbox, you can go find it if you're a community board member, what the special text amendment was that came our way. What I also did was grabbed the same documents that went out to the community board members and dropped it into a Google link by way of a bit.ly, just to make it easy for people to kind of follow along. And if you're somebody who's also trying to find the special text amendment in your inbox, this might make it a little bit easier for you. So here's the bit.ly. Just basically you'd follow this link to get there. And then there was background text to it as well. So I just included that here. And I can share that again as the meeting progresses. I am going to give a couple of quick updates, and then again, that first agenda item is to open it up. And Christina, I'll go to you. We have had a very positive response. I mean, I'm comparing it to a baseline of 0, I guess, right? Looking at where we started, but we've had a very strong response from the letter that was first gone through this committee in the fall of last year and then finalized and approved in the December community board meeting, where everyone from the community board gave unanimous consent, where we sent out a note out to agencies and electeds on last mile facilities. So these are the representatives that have followed up directly. Everybody here, you can see in red, we've now had a couple of meetings alongside coming to this larger community board committee meeting with the assembly member and the city council member, but we've had the, Congressperson Velasquez, Congressperson Clark, Senator Savino, Assemblymember Carroll, and Abadi, who have followed up alongside the Brooklyn Borough President, and then some representatives from the mayor's office. So these meetings have not yet been scheduled, but they will. And again, this is directly following up to the last mile letter that we as a committee and then as a community board had sent out to pay attention and take action on the last mile trucking issues. So wanted to report back on that, and then we'll make sure to keep good record of meeting minutes and what's discussed in those when they get scheduled and happen over the next couple of weeks. I did want to also report back on a quick meeting, if you call it that I jumped into, that was on Friday of last week, where there was maybe Christina can talk about this or others, but the council member Alexa Vilas had a meeting and kind of a walkthrough, a drive-through of issues related to transportation, last mile just being one of many that are being faced in Sunset Park, in Red Hook, right, in the community board at large, and at the city council district at large. So I just caught about 10 minutes of the commissioner's time and stood on the corner of 22nd and 3rd Avenue on Friday. This was the prompt that was shared with me. And then I wanted to just say what I focused in on. The call to action was, of course, on last mile trucking facilities, but this is really issues broadly that our community is facing on transportation. And of course, like the committee that is the one that Zach Jacey leads, the transportation committee. I mean, please, we have so many things that we're trying to work on. Last mile is a component of it. So this is reflective of larger requests that have been made for many, many, many years by Community Board 7 related to transportation, trucking, safety, pedestrian access, air quality, pollution, you name it. And so all I did in service of that meeting on Friday was to just basically round up all these public documents that we have from Community Board 7 on trucking and transportation and issues, and hand it to the commissioner on Friday and then verbally set it. So these were the points that I raised, in the context of talking about this giant trucking facility that is being built between 19th and 21st on 3rd Avenue. So this is just a snapshot from that hand-delivered memo for folks to see. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our agenda. And again, main focus, what we're doing is going to be on the special text amendment. Before I hand the mic over to Christina from Alexa Avilas's office, were there any, do committee members or community board members have any questions or comments on the agenda and the discussion for today? And I will get help from Jeremy, but I think I see Zach's hand up. So go for it, Zach.
Hi. Yes, I was just curious what your conversation was with the DOT commissioner, if you were able to, I know we spoke about asking about the metered parking the continuation of that project, if there was any response to that, or if that was news to the commissioner, or what happened there?
Yes, I did verbally say that. and I need to add it into the letter so you know it well, that there's a lot of trailers, right, that are parked below, just at that intersection of 21st and 3rd where we were standing. But the larger point, Zach, that you're referring to is this request on metered parking from 17th Street down to 65th, right? There's like that little portion where we have metered parking, but that was a call to action that you had suggested to add. The response from the commissioner just in general to all of like the memo and the comments was the things that I heard was a question to us: how long have we asked for this? So that came up, right? And so in as many times as I could say, like 15 years, 20 years, 10 years, and then a commitment to look into it and a commitment to follow up. But that was all I heard as takeaways. But I think Alexa Vilas's office, I was only there for 10 minutes, and I know they went to Red Hook, and I know they went to other parts of Sunset Park. So I think we should ask the council member's office for a full report out. I will hope that's satisfactory, and then maybe if I can go to Cesar.
Yeah, I would, sorry, just follow up. Yes, I would like a full account from the council member's office. And also, it seems like we were given pretty last minute invitation to this. Seems like there should have been several of us that were involved in this in this tour with the commissioner. So I'd like a little more explanation on that from the council person's office as well.
Thank you. So I just wanted to quickly, just before we got into the weeds, again, well, I wanted to thank Katie for your work on this. And I think the board should be very proud of how far we've gotten. And I think it speaks volumes of the critical nature of this issue, in that we have so much engagement from so many stakeholders. And I feel super, super appreciative of all of our elected officials, particularly our representatives, Councilmember Aviles, Assemblymember Matenis, because I think this rose to prominence for all of us as a community. And I think, this is just another example of what can happen when the community really comes together, organizes, and lifts its voice, in this case, on something that's super consequential to the entire district. Again, I just want to thank Katie, and also just encourage all of us to feel proud, and to encourage all of us to continue to engage on this issue and on a whole bunch of issues that are just as consequential. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, board members. Thank you, electeds, for coming together and really moving the needle on this. And hopefully, obviously, there's still a whole long way to go. But again, I think what's been done in this year by everybody is pretty remarkable, and I just wanted to make sure we were on record saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members with hands up or questions? Jeremy, I don't see anybody. Do you?
I don't see any either.
Great. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hand mic over to Christina. If you can provide an update. I think you're elevated as a panelist.
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Katie. Sorry, I'm just not going to show my face tonight. I am simultaneously on mom duty, so you might hear my kids in the background. But you see Alexa's face there, which I think is probably a whole lot better. Anyway, congratulations, everyone, on 1 year of the Committee on Last Mile Trekking Facilities. You've all done so much already, and there's obviously so much more to do. I guess I'll start out by addressing the concerns with the DOT commissioner walkthrough. So I'm happy to go back to our office and ask those in attendance to provide a full report out to the board. I unfortunately was not there. I did hear afterwards that the commissioner was quite impressed with the size and scale of the last mile facilities. So I think it says something that he was there to see it in person as opposed to just hear it in an email or a phone call. And, in terms of inviting community members there, I'll be very honest with you. I was part of a meeting, that DOT commissioner meeting happened Friday. So maybe earlier that week, I was in a meeting with 2 community members on a very narrow policy issue, during which the council member mentioned that there was going to be a walkthrough of the community of the entire District 38 that Friday. And, the purpose of the meeting was really just for Udonis and Alexa to talk one-on-one about the issues faced by the entire district, do a walkthrough of Sunset Park, do a walkthrough of Red Hook. And Last Mile was, always intended to be a component of that. I think when it was suggested during that meeting, some of the community members said, hey, it might be useful to have 1 or 2 community members there. To which our response was, yes, please send us your recommendations. Unfortunately, I think that message got miscommunicated and relayed to a large group of people, or a larger group of people than we had intended it to be relayed to. This is, we were really trying to warm up the commissioner. We wanted to express all of the issues in the district, Last Mile being one of them. And we wanted somebody there who was, who could speak fluently on the issue, but we didn't want to give anybody the impression in the community that there was going to be a ton of airtime on Last Mile facilities. Honestly, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to make it to Red Hook on the commissioner's schedule. As you know, commissioners are often late to meetings and often have to have other commitments and have to leave more before you'd like them to leave. So I think there was just a miscommunication, and we learned a lesson, and our apologies to anybody who felt like they were left out of the conversation. But hopefully you've felt a part of the conversation in other ways, and we'll continue to invite you to more conversations on this. I hope that's a reasonable explanation. But the reason I'm here is to discuss a letter that we've been working on. So, I think the community boards have expressed a number of times that they would like to see an interagency working group on the Last Mile issue. We've been working on this, a few months ago, the administration released a report called Rebuild, Renew, and Reinvent. You might check it out. In that report, there's mention of wanting to convene a working group called the Industrial Working Group. So we thought, this is a good opportunity to merge these 2 issues. The letter, sort of sets the table for a conversation. As you know, the industrial business zones are really the areas that have been flooded by Last Mile facilities. So, we've been looking at how to approach this problem in a number of different ways. One way is that potentially we could tighten the regulations around the IBZ, and in so doing, hopefully be able to exclude Last Mile facilities while promoting behaviors that we do want to see. We do want to see good green jobs in the industrial business zones. We do want to see particular types of industries and employers. We don't want to see the Last Mile type facilities. So this letter, which hopefully has been shared with you all, is basically just creating an entry point to say, hey, you all issued this report, Rebuild, Renew, Reinvent. We think this is great. Let's all get together and have a conversation about the industrial business zones and how we can improve them and make better, greener jobs, and hopefully work on tightening restrictions so that we don't have improper use like Last Mile facilities. We are hoping that your community board will sign on to this letter. We've also asked CB6 to sign on, and we have a number of council members who have signed on. So far, we have obviously Councilmember Aviles, Councilmember Ressler, Councilmember Gutierrez, and there may be 1 or 2 more. and possibly Community Board 1, but that's still up in the air. We might just move forward without Community Board 1. And I think that's it. I'm happy to take any questions on that.
I will jump in just to say that this letter has not yet been circulated to the committee members. So that's something that would need to happen in order to support it as a committee. That being said, Cesar, there might be another committee as well that has a meeting coming up sooner, like the Transportation Committee or the Land Use Committee or the Economic Development Committee. It doesn't just have to be this one to review it, to think about what it would mean to bring to the community board. So I just want to say, like, there are a couple of options available. And especially because it has to do with IBZ, like maybe this would mean that we would want to bring it to the Land Use Committee as an example. So Christina, that's the first comment. It's just that, like, folks haven't seen this yet from this committee. So that relates to the next part of this, which is your timing. What's the timing that you're working on?
Well, I guess we misunderstood. So we thought we understood that this was potentially going to be voted on Wednesday by your committee board. I don't know if that's still a possibility or no.
So tonight, what the community board committee, this committee is voting on is the special text amendment that was brought forward by the Last Mile Coalition. So that's what's on our agenda tonight.
Okay, so I guess, I would just turn the question. Of course, we want you all to be on this letter. So what do you think is the soonest you would be able to tell me whether you can sign on?
So Cesar and Jeremy, I might say maybe the next thing would be to see if there's another committee that would entertain this, because that would be coming up sooner, but I will defer to.
Yeah, let me just understand something, Christina. So this would be, so this is a letter that is sort of already like this letter exists. You have language, you have what you want to say, and you're just getting stakeholders to sign on to it. Or is it a letter that you need us to develop in support of?
No, it's developed. It's basically ready to go. We just need folks to drop on their signature.
So Jeremy, is that something that as chair I could
Anybody could introduce anything at the meeting. You just need a second. I would suggest circulating that to the board members beforehand, so we don't have very lengthy discussion. People will already have read it.
Okay. I guess the only question then is, we have today, the rest of today and tomorrow to get it out to people and have them look at it before we meet on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Julio, did you have an insight into how the process here?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to comment just in terms of procedurally. If the committee decided if they wanted to vote in support of the text amendment and procedurally wanted to send it to another committee, they can do so, or they can just send it directly to the board, which I think makes sense. But I will leave it to the committee to decide that.
Okay, so I'm going to jump back in to say that Cesar, I forwarded it to you, so you can look at it and then consider bringing it up on Wednesday. We can get it out to the full board members tomorrow. I'll leave that in your court.
Yeah, if you all just keep me updated. We were hoping to send it out by the end of the week. I guess just let me know if it doesn't happen Wednesday for some reason. Let me know what the next reasonable time frame would be. I think there is some urgency, but you guys have worked a lot on this, so we want to include you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm inclined to think that it's. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would prevent us from continuing to engage and be part of this. So let me look through it, and we'll definitely bring it up on Wednesday, and hopefully we can get the board to to engage. Again, I don't know that this is controversial. I don't know that there are going to be. I could be wrong about that. And
yeah, and
yeah.
I'll just say that as far as letter writing to agencies, this is pretty non-controversial because it's really just asking everybody to come to the table is the crux of it.
Yeah.
It presents the problem and it says, hey, we want to work with you. Let's all get together. We'd love to include the community boards and other agencies on this issue. So it's pretty, low key and I think non-controversial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm encouraged that we can just get this approved and signed on by Wednesday.
Okay, great.
Katie, Zach has his hand up and there's a question in the Q&A from the Executive Director of Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development.
Okay, how about we go to Zach and then I can read Jesse's question. Zach?
Well, I'm just curious why we can't just all see the letter or see, and it would be, and the committee could vote on it, or it should be shared with everybody. I don't understand why that wouldn't be the case.
Sure. I mean, Jeremy, can we send it out? Can we forward it just to the whole and have everyone see it?
Do you mean to the entire board or?
Sure. And obviously to the people in this group first, but yes, to the entire board.
And are you talking right now?
Not this second, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Obviously, we could send it out. That's not a problem. I was just trying to get if you wanted to do it during the meeting.
No.
Okay, Christina, still tagging you back in. Do you want to talk about the importance of the timing? Is it focused just on last mile or other competing uses in IBZs like nightclubs and retail and standalone offices?
So, again, I would say we do feel a sense of urgency, but we want to include you. So the sooner the better. I guess that's our bottom line. The sooner the better. And again, it's table setting. So we're talking about IBZs. There is explicit mention of last mile facilities. It's in there, but it's really about how the rules are too loose. There's no explicit mention of nightclubs, retail, or standalone offices. It's just we hope you'll talk to us about tightening the existing regulations in the IBZ. Please have a conversation with us and community members.
Okay. Great. All right. And then Christina, while Zach, yes.
Sorry to beat a dead horse, but I mean, I feel like why would this not be shared? This should be shared with Jesse Solomon. I would think you'd want his input on this sort of letter. You're talking about IBZs. This is, we have to we're setting a table, yes, but we have to make sure we're all setting the same table. So I think there needs to be a little more transparency in this letter.
So, I think the issue is that you all just need to read it. So hopefully
Correct.
After this, Jeremy and Katie, if you could circulate, and then I'm happy to have more specific Q&A with anyone who wants to reach out.
That's okay. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so Christina, before we go to the next item, do you have an update on the legislation, city council legislation?
So somewhat of a legislative update. I presented to you all maybe about a month ago now, and we've been working on the legislation diligently, and then we ran into an unexpected obstacle. So we have been dealing with that obstacle for about the past 2 weeks. I want to say that obstacle has been cleared, and we anticipate moving forward with the legislation within the month. But I guess in two or so days, we will be able to say more definitively the status of that legislation, but it's looking positive right now. So we're hoping soon.
Nick?
Can you be a little bit more descriptive? I mean, I don't think these are state secrets here, but it seems, what obstacle and what was the nature or any more specifics as it applies to the legislation?
It's just internal political obstacles that we have been, working to overcome. It's politics. So, having conversations, trying to overcome disagreements and so forth. But, it doesn't impact the legislation. So, anything that I presented to the board before remains the same. And we think it will move forward.
Okay, and the timeline on city council, like I know we were closing in on a very tight window for state legislative. Can you remind us what city is?
Sure. So, city, I think is pretty similar. Will be closing out at the end of June. So, I anticipate, I want to say at least 3 more stated meetings.
Okay, so in time for this legislative cycle.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we will stay tuned. I don't see any other questions coming in from board members for you. So Christina, thank you for joining. And as action items, definitely, yes, a report out from the office on Udonis's visit would be very helpful for everybody. Last mile being one of those, but of course, transportation issues more broadly. So we'll make sure to follow up with your office on that in particular. And then this letter as well will get sent out to everybody for CESAR to be able to introduce as part of Wednesday's meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we're going to go back to our agenda. And again, it would be helpful if I put the link up. So if anybody needed to grab the text, they can do that. I'll put this back up. So we're going to move into discussion. Now we've had a couple of meetings. Last meeting had both DOT and DCP, but what we had in the last meeting was this introduction from the Last Mile Coalition on the special text amendment that we will bring to a vote. So we have an opportunity. We've got a bunch of folks from the Last Mile Coalition who came. So before we move into what would be public comment after this, and then what would be the committee vote, I would love to open it up. I'm thinking, Nick, you might have questions, Zach might have questions, others, and we can elevate the, let me just see, I think if they're elevated, we can elevate any of the Last Mile Coalition members as speakers. So this was introduced in the last committee meeting, so I'm not going to actually spend time introducing the legislation or the text amendment. I just wanted to jump straight in to any clarifying questions or comments. So you could raise your hand as a committee member. It would be helpful if you have any questions. Nick, go for it.
All right, I've got a couple of them. Under the definition of last mile, how is this going to be enforced? Do we already have existing definitions for e-commerce retail goods? Only because I'm just thinking like, who's going to be challenging this? So that's going to be question number 1. Question number 2 is under 74-49A, number 3. Do we define significant maritime industrial areas? And then secondly, I think that is going to be pretty much infeasible almost always given the port capacities. And I think some other clarifying statement would have to be included in there or something. I know what the intent is for where we'd like the goods to come from, but I feel like that'll get thrown out. Under B in findings, what about advantage communities? I know that they're mostly located in certain locations, but we're arbitrarily picking these. And I think it probably would be applicable to all, regardless of where they're located. We happen to live in a disadvantaged community, but if you're a lawyer trying to nitpick, you could argue that it's arbitrary. In terms of additional requirements under 1, 2, giving the agencies 45 days to comment. Generally speaking, at least from our interactions with the Department of Transportation and both the DEP, I don't think I've ever seen them move faster than multiple months, not 45 days, which likely means that no reports will be referenced and the ultimate intent of those statements will therefore not actually happen. Furthermore, on number 2, if the indirect source rule is not passed, I think the DEP, as already stated, will have very, very limited impact in ruling on air pollution. So this is very much so predicated on that indirect source rule passing. So I would actually recommend either adding teeth to this, if that's what is intended to do in for the city's legislation. And if it happens to be duplicated by the state, then great. Otherwise, that's still an open question. The last comment I would have is that this should probably be reviewed by Land Use Council, especially if we're signing on. It should ideally be the community board's Land Use Council. And, finally, hearing who this will actually impact. This is very much written from the residents' point of view, but I would like to hear specifically from the businesses if this is going to have any adverse impacts that we're not anticipating by this. Although, the general spirit and intent I agree with, I just want to know, who are we inadvertently harming if we proceed?
Thanks. So I would actually ask Kevin if you were planning on responding. What we could do is go through and hear a couple of the questions. This is a lot that Nick raised, probably more than 10 points that I wrote down. If you want to be able to respond to those directly. Or
Katie,
Loke.
I just elevated Kevin.
Okay, great. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me fine?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you all again for your time. Well, first of all, thank you for reviewing this. Thank you for your time, for being able to speak. Also, congratulations on 1 year. It's a big milestone. But yeah, let's see. I guess starting with some of these questions, I'm remembering the more recent ones. So who is this going to impact? I think that was the last question from Nick. Is that correct?
Inadvertently. So I know we're trying to capture the last mile warehouses, but are there other similar types of businesses that do not engage in this that is going to be caught up in this?
If I'm not mistaken, and I know we have some other folks from the Last Mile Coalition, I don't believe so. It's going to be, the facilities that are 50,000 square feet or more. But also it's going to be for any future facility, any future structure, right? And yeah, it's not going to be for any existing, structure. So if there's, a warehouse right now that's operating, they're unfortunately not going to be impacted by this. If they're a last mile trucking facility and causing a lot of congestion in the neighborhood. Yeah, I think the indirect source rule, if and when it's passed, is going to target that more. We also have Hillary, who's on who can answer some of these questions as well. And I believe Eva Hanhart is here as well. Oh, and Alok. But Hillary, or anyone else really from the Last Mile Coalition, I don't know if you want to jump in and answer that question.
Sure, so I can jump in and then I'm happy for anyone else to add to this. But in terms of the definition, we did tailor this to address specifically the types of facilities that we're concerned about, and defined it based on how those facilities are used. And so I think we're not as concerned about sort of sweeping up unintentionally any facilities that we're not actually trying to target. In terms of some of the other questions that were raised, significant maritime industrial areas, that is defined elsewhere under the zoning resolution. So that would be the definition that's used here. with respect to the agencies having 45 days to write their reports, that's sort of standard under the zoning resolution for when special permits get referred out to other agencies, that 45-day period. So that's where that comes from. With respect to the question on disadvantaged communities, I think we're less concerned about that being considered arbitrary, since the state has identified on a draft basis and will identify on a more final basis those communities for where we need to prioritize reductions of precisely the types of pollutants that come from the vehicle traffic induced by last mile facilities. So it's an appropriate use of that definition. And also that provision of the proposed text would similarly apply to manufacturing and C8 commercial zones, as well as any residential adjacent communities. So we're not, it would be a way to really address pollutant impacts generally, and not necessarily just singling out DACs. And I think that covers everything, but I'll pass it to my other last mile colleagues.
Yeah, if I can jump in, and I appreciate the questions, Nick. Congratulations to everyone for tackling this issue for a year. I can sense a lot of momentum recently, so hopefully this conversation, you guys see it as part of that forward momentum. Yes, I think Hillary hit everything that I wanted to hit, basically. Except I think, yeah, and to your point, Nick, about the port capacity, I think that's a legitimate one. Obviously, I think as you said in your question, you understand, where that language is coming from. We work, we're hoping to work with the city to figure out a way to make that a little bit more actionable. I mean, I would treat it as the first sort of offer. We didn't feel like as a coalition we could, we're comfortable putting that in there, but I don't, if city or anyone else, any other stakeholders feel like we need to be dealing with that in a different way, I think we'd be, that'd be part of the negotiations afterwards. As far as, the businesses, we tried to tailor the definition to be very precise in order to minimize impacts on a broader suite of businesses, but that's also, happy to continue to figure out the better ways to tailor that, and including having conversations with the industrial community on that point. And I see Eva's trying to get in before we move on.
I just wanted to comment very quickly on the SMIA, on significant maritime industrial areas. Those are not limited to the port. They actually are broader along the waterfront. There are many areas where there are bulkheads and there are piers that actually can be used within those areas. So I think your point about the port is an excellent one, but I don't believe that it has to be limited to a port facility itself. So I don't know if that answers the question. I've been quite involved with the creation of the SMIAs, and the intent was not that they were only the larger ports.
And as to the last point about DEP, I think I just want to, I think we're hoping for a suite of regulations. I don't think any one policy, like the zoning code, is not necessarily the perfect vehicle to get, no pun intended, to get all the types of protections that we're seeking to get. As the council members, staff pointed out, I think there's going to be a sort of mosaic of different. It's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a patchwork, a mosaic approach. We're going to need to be pushing for the state solution. You're asking for more teeth in that portion. I think we'd be very open and eager to explore like what that could look like. But I think if there's something a more direct, a legislative approach that could empower DEP to do something, that might be a more targeted way to deal with the DEP problem. Maybe that's the way forward. We just found for the zoning aspect of it, as this application is meant to do, it's, we want to keep it pretty tailored into what we feel like is within the purview of that, land use and zoning kind of uses.
Thank you for answering those questions. I know that drafting this and everything else like this takes a lot of work, so it's very much appreciated. I would encourage you guys to reach out to the industrial community just to make sure, because you hear from us often because we're usually pretty vocal about it, but a lot of the businesses are too busy doing what they do, which is, business. And, finding out how that will impact them, because this is primarily the group that will be impacted by this, and just finding out what their impacts may be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And one of the things I think I also heard you say, Nick, was not to lose that. But if you want to say a little bit more about the Land Use Council for Community Board 7.
If we're going to sign on to something, then we should probably have an independent review. The only other concern that I really would have would be if DCP is just going to throw this out for one of the many reasons that they usually do. And, trying to ascertain, what would need to be changed so that DCP will actually adopt something like this versus finding a way not to do it.
Yeah, so last mile folks, if you have any comments on that with DCP.
Kevin, I'm happy for you to go first.
Yeah, I think, Nick, to your first point, we're happy to meet with the land use committee, and we're also happy to meet with the rest of the board. But as was mentioned earlier tonight, you've all been working on this for a year now, and we want to present an option with a possible solution. Right. And, we would love to, and we would appreciate your support on this. So, we definitely want to, do as much as we can, but, time is of the essence. Every day that, does pass, one new facility is being proposed or the shovels hitting the ground. So, we want to make sure that, we're getting this out there as quickly as possible. We have met also with DCP. We met with Chair Garodnik as well. I want to say end of March. So they're aware of this, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Once we submit this application, so there's those conversations are going to be ongoing. But Hillary, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Thanks, Kevin. That's exactly what I was going to say as well, Nick. I totally understand and appreciate that concern. And the thing with this process is that it is always a little bit of a back and forth. So it's not like we submit this and then there's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And Eva can speak to this as well as she wants, as someone who's been more involved in these processes, but there is always some input from DCP working together to move it forward. And so we're confident that this will move forward, even if the final version doesn't look exactly like what we have here. It's a proposal. And we know that DCP understands that this is a problem and that it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I would just reinforce what Hillary said, and that is, and Kevin, that once the application is in, city planning is going to participate in a negotiation around, in fact, many of the points that they may have concerns about or not. It's what happens in any application. Once it enters into the process, city planning will want to negotiate if they have some questions or some modifications. But on the whole, I think it's fair to say that they have recognized the fact that this is an issue. And have been, Kevin, I think it's fair to also to say that they have reached out to help get the application into the process in the way that it needs to be.
I only say all of this due to the difficulty that was had in the last time this was approached in limiting hotels in industrial districts. And so I would reference that experience for anybody who was involved, as that almost didn't happen.
Yeah. Understood.
And I think we want to get part of the idea here is why we're so eager to have the CB's the special subcommittee and the whole community board on with us is as a show that this is a real concern. As Eva mentioned, DCP is excited to talk with us on this issue. But I think, you know, a lot of people's first instinct is like, oh, why doesn't DEP do it? Why doesn't DOT do it? Why doesn't the state deal with it? So in an effort to move all the parties closer to working, you know, constructively towards a set of solutions, I'm really hoping that, you know, CBC will consider how they can lend their support to our application here to keep that positive and forward momentum going, so it doesn't just languish, you know, somewhere in a pile of, you know, bureaucratic paperwork.
I'm going to open it up to some questions from other board members. Thank you for the robustness of everybody who's here and responding. This is, you know, the special text amendment, I think, that we're talking about and considering today. One tool in the toolbox, right? We've heard about the indirect source rule. There's a lot of additional legislation that Christina referred to around the licensing. There's this working group at the agency mayoral level in the city that Christina also raised today being considered. So again, these are just tools in the toolbox, and it's definitely not it's got to be a kind of all of the above strategy. But I wanted to open it up to any other board members with questions. Maybe if there is, I'm struggling a little bit to see if there's any hands up. Give me 1 second. Based on the special text amendment. John Fantillis, I think, is on. If you had any questions.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand for some reason.
Yeah, don't worry. Go for it.
Well, I just, you know, the text amendments aren't typically ULURP. This is really at the prerogative of CPC, right? To bring it through.
I believe Eva, go ahead.
Yeah, it is not a ULURP. It is city planning. That's correct. It does not, the text amendment does not go to the city council. It does not go through ULURP. It does get sent to the community boards and to the borough presidents. However, the special permit, if the text amendment is adopted, would go through a ULURP process and would eventually go to the city council.
I mean, obviously, yes, that would be great because that'd be similar to the hotel special permit. But, you know, trying to get there, essentially, we have to get members of the commission to agree, number one. Number two, we have to get hopefully a majority of boards around the city also to support the text amendment. And then, although I guess it's a 90-day review period, right? Is that correct? Essentially, during the time period that they're reviewing this, after they put it out to the public, to the boards, let's say the commission is in agreement, they could just make this text change in 90 days. Is that correct?
Theoretically.
That's great. I just honestly, I think CPC in this case is, can I call them a hostile, what do you call them when they're on the legal stand and you don't really know whether or not they're supportive or not. But I just, you know, I think it's, as Katie said, it's something else in the toolbox, which is great. And, you know, I would hope that there are some commissioners that are very supportive. I hope there are some commissioners that may be on the fence and can be swayed. I certainly think there are some commissioners that will say absolutely not. They want to support every, you know, giant Amazon or whatever. But what do you guys think in terms of other boards? Do you have a sense of where other community boards are on this, or borough presidents?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So we have come to you all first because we know all the work that you have been doing, and you know we've heard you, and you know we also have two of our community-based organizations that work in this coalition are, you know, a part of this you know, special subcommittee. So you know we have Uprose, and we also have Red Hook Initiative who participate in the Last Mile Coalition. So we've approached you all. You know, we heard from the last meeting that you all suggested we reach out to Community Board 6 and 5, but you know we want to get your support and approval first, and have you all join as a co-applicant first. Because like I said, you all have been doing this work, but we've also have been sort of having a conversation with, I believe, Bronx Community Board too. So we but very just not too in depth, more of like, hey, this is what we're doing, because we also have representation in the coalition, through the Point CDC, which represents Hunts Point neighborhood. So yeah, I think that might answer your question. Yeah. Hillary, I also know your hand's been up, so I don't know if you want to jump in and add anything. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. I just wanted to add to what Eva was saying about the process, that the application gets, this text amendment application would be referred to other community boards for recommendation. So it's not the case that they have veto power, just to clarify that.
No, understood. But I think what the way the hotel text amendment passed, if I remember correctly, is that there was a significant number of community boards that all banded together because they were seeing it in their own, like MassPath and the Arizona JFK. They were all seeing the same sort of issues that were happening in their own districts. So it's just really, how does one organize to get these districts, in support? And it was funny. I went to a job site today in Staten Island, so I took the S40 bus back, and it was packed with Amazon workers coming back to the ferry. And I thought, wow, people in Staten Island Board 1 must be also feeling the same ideas or the same issues as we are. And what you said about the Bronx, and I mean, there are these issues that can spread across the entire city, but it has to be, that support has to be organized and somehow, brought together to show a force, to really force CPC to take this mantle up. Ava?
Yeah, just in answer partially to that, and that is that even once the application is submitted, additional sponsors can come on, which could be from other community boards. In addition, there is the opportunity to lend support, letters of support, and actually activism to support, not just by community boards, but by community-based organizations and others. So the submission itself is not the end point. And in fact, having a submission in is a good rallying point for bringing in additional support. So.
And I was going to say, we're kind of, the idea that we had in mind, was like building off of the infrastructure that in large part was created by your community board and your special subcommittee to really start this conversation, make it a real conversation that's being had within the bureau, within the agencies, but using that as Eva mentioned, a springboard to future conversations. We're definitely going to be in touch with folks across the city where these issues are arising. That's definitely part of the process. But right now, we're thinking that the best way to move it forward, this committee that has created this special, I don't think that another community board even has a special subcommittee the way you folks do, right? So really building off of that work, capitalizing on that, start the process, start the conversation. You guys are at the vanguard, at the cut, the tip of the spear in some ways for this. So we think it's appropriate to kind of, with your support, move forward on this process while we continue to do that outreach and engagement across the city.
If I could just add one thought, just because I was on the S40 and saw so many people with their Amazon, uniforms on, there were a couple guys that had their Amazon Union t-shirts on. I mean, do we have a sense of where the unions might be on something like this? Would they be in support? Would they be anti? I mean, does anybody have a thought on that?
I just want to make one quick comment that refers slightly to that, but not completely, and that is that a special permit is not a prohibition. And I think that is a particularly important fact. The special permit is actually an opportunity for the city to say, yes, we want these kind of businesses if they act in a responsible way, and if they are designed and located in a way that does not have a significantly negative impact on the communities they're in. So and that's only partially in response to how others might be perceiving it, including both the industry and workers, that the idea here is not a prohibition. I think Eddie has often said the idea is not to kill the industry, but for it not to kill the neighborhoods it's in. So.
Good point.
Okay, I want to ask. This was in the notes, so I'm just realizing that there's some context here that not everyone here would have. But in notes that Summer Sandoval had sent, there was information about what it means to be a co-applicant, including fees that are included or fees that are waived. So Jesse Solomon has just asked about, is CB7 going to be an applicant on this text amendment? Just to say what we're doing tonight is we're voting just as a committee first on reviewing this to even move it to the community board. So I'll just pause on that. That's what we're doing today. But I would love to ask someone from the Last Mile Coalition, can you just talk about what the steps are, what happens?
Yeah, thanks. That's a really important question. The hope is for the community board to be a co-applicant along with others, including the public advocate, representatives from the community organizations that are part of the Last Mile Coalition, as well as a number of other elected officials. And the advantage of being a co-applicant, of course, is that the community board would be involved in those back and forth conversations that we discussed earlier with city planning as this moves forward. There are fees, however, those fees would be waived for the community board. And I saw that there was a question too about who would pay for the environmental impact statement. And we do not expect that that will be necessary for this application. And so in terms of the sort of, as a practical matter, what the steps would be, there are some forms to fill out. I think it's a pretty light lift. Kevin has been very, very helpful with that. And he can jump in if there's anything that I've missed on any of that.
No, I think that's all correct, Hillary. Yeah, and then with regards to the forms, basically what we would need, if Community Board 7, does agree to join in as a co-applicant on this application, is one representative, and then that representative will just have to fill out two forms at max. Yeah, and that's really it. And then on our end, we'll just have to update a little bit of the language just to include, Brooklyn Community Board 7 in the project description and a couple other places. But it's a very, very quick process. But like Hillary said, very light lift, 2 documents that need to be filled out. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and I'll just go back to the point that Nick raised. At Jeremy is close to and Cesar, but just in terms of having our legal reviews would be somewhere in the process would need to happen. Any other? I'm going to move to public comment, and then we will do the vote. Community Board 7 committee members or community board members. Any other questions that you have? Okay. Not seeing any. So if we'll move into the agenda item that is public comment. If you have a question or you'd like to make a comment, roughly 3 minutes, you can put your hand up and then Jeremy will help me with that if anyone has a comment or question. Okay, so I see Peter Crudy.
Peter, you can unmute yourself.
Yep. Okay, great. Yeah, so my comment is, I understand, all the machinations back and forth about permits and all of it. What I don't understand is where do they think these trucks are going? Like if they're coming up from that facility on 20th Their plan is to go down 3rd Avenue all the way to the Verrazano Bridge, so 3rd Avenue to 60th Street. I mean, has anyone actually looked at 3rd Avenue, realized right now it's choked up with traffic? You're going to run hundreds of trucks down 3rd Avenue. I feel like they're getting out of having to make real studies of the traffic patterns here because they can get out of it, because they have their protection as leases that don't require these studies. But I don't understand, not requiring the study doesn't mean that the traffic's not going to be impossible. We know there's the most deaths on that 3rd Avenue. Now there's of many places in the city, it's very high. And we know that they're talking about now a charter school at 39th and 3rd. So, I mean, what is it going to take? Is it going to take the injury of a child or something trying to go to that school before anything is done about actually studying? I mean, should there be new road construction along 2nd Avenue or 1st Avenue, or, what's realistic here? Why are they, the builders of the last mile facilities, not engaged in understanding there's a reality of traffic problems? 4th is a parking lot, 3rd is a parking lot, and 5th Avenue goes nowhere, right? It goes by the cemetery and then dies up there with 1,000 lights. So there's absolutely no way in and out. If they think, because they came at midnight and saw there might be a way to go down 3rd Avenue and get out of town, that's the traffic flow, then they have not gone there during rush hour. So that's my comment, is that it's an impossible traffic situation on 3rd Avenue. How they imagine that they are going to get these vehicles in and out. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Felicia?
Hi. Just expanding on Peter's point, I live on 28th Street. My husband's family has owned the home since it was built in the early 1900s. And just to give you an idea, as a resident, of the impact on a daily basis, which most residents that were not given the opportunity to speak because they weren't aware of last mile trucking. I could speak for some of these neighbors that have no idea what's going around them. But today I went to pick my child up from school, and a 53-foot trailer, which is not supposed to come down our 28th Street block, is coming down our block and turning the corner to go onto 3rd Avenue, where there are 3 other trucks outside of Granger and Hilty loading, and this 53-foot truck cannot get around them. Traffic is stalled. People are honking. I'm late to pick up my son. I can't back up my back block because there's another truck behind me. And this is just giving you just a small window into our world of the community that we deal with the increased traffic just based on Liberty View and Amazon and Hello Fresh Direct. So what further impact on the traffic and community is this going to have? And perhaps this conversation is pretty late to have in the game, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because Peter has brought up the conversation about what 3rd Avenue is going to look like with last mile trucking. And this is just a little window into my day today, where I was late to pick up my child who was standing in a schoolyard waiting for me, just because of the illegal 53-foot trailers that continue to come down our small blocks and turn down 3rd Avenue and can't make those turns. Why? Because there's a reason they're illegal to come down those blocks. What is it going to look like when they come down 3rd Avenue?
Thank you, Felicia and Peter. And this is the kind of worsening of existing conditions and compounding and accelerating is all the things that were brought this to the fore for this committee. Are there any other Jesse Sullivan, open to you, public comment?
Jesse, you could unmute yourself.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to ask 2 clarifying questions briefly. The first is, I heard someone from the Last Mile Coalition say that this wouldn't need an environmental impact statement, and I'm curious if you can clarify why that why you think that's the case. And then two, if the community board or whomever could clarify the timeline on this. So Katie, you mentioned that this is going for today, that your committee is just voting on whether or not to take it to the full board. And then what happens at the full board? Does the full board on Wednesday decide to move forward to be the applicant?
I will let Last Mile respond on the environmental impact, and then I'll jump.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Yeah, if I remember correctly, so it would have to go through the seeker review, and then, you know, from there, they'll have to declare whether there is a a potentially significant adverse environmental impact. But because we're trying to limit these facilities, which would then hopefully limit the amount of trucks and congestion and pollution or emissions in the area, we're suspecting that there's going to be a negative declaration, a neg deck, and then that's going to basically mean we don't have to do this environmental assessment. Hillary, Eva, I don't know, or Alok, I don't know if you want to jump in and add any more.
I just have a quick follow-up question on there, because I'm curious if I know part of this is meant to encourage, I believe, more goods moving on the waterfront, which could have environmental concerns. So wondering if that would trigger the EIS. And maybe that's too technical of a question, but at this stage, I understand it's the beginning, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So, and Eva, feel free to jump in on this as well, but a specific application that would involve maritime transport could trigger the need for an EIS, depending on what the impacts would be. But for something like this, that's an overall policy shift. There are not specific impacts associated with it, because any particular facility would still need a permit in order to go forward. So there's kind of an additional step in between this action and anything that could actually have an environmental impact. So for that reason, we don't expect that a full environmental impact statement will be necessary.
Okay, and I'm going to jump in. What we're doing in this meeting is we're going to, the specific thing, which will happen in a minute, is introducing for the committee, the folks who are here on the committee, resolution on the special text amendment. And then we'll see if it's seconded, and then we'll vote on it. And then it goes to the community board on Wednesday. But so we're a few minutes away from that. I will, and I actually might, I know some folks had to have to hop off soon. So I actually am going to move to the vote, and I don't see any other hands up from public comment. So with that, I'm going to move to introduce a resolution for this committee. And I really want to recognize the point that was made around having CB7's legal counsel review this. So the resolution would be
Katie, people keep bringing up CB7's legal counsel. We do not have a legal counsel.
Oh, good. So then maybe this is a wonderful interlude from Jeremy to say that we don't have legal counsel. So Nick, what was your inspiration?
Just having a land use attorney peel over this. You know, it's kind of like if you're signing a contract or signing onto a contract, you should probably have a lawyer read it. So you might as well. I mean, I think we could use the same guy that did Industry City or somebody. I know there's a cost associated, but I would think that would be good practice.
Well, we didn't have legal counsel for Industry City. We had.
Well, no, we had, but you know who I'm talking about, George Janes.
He's an urban planner. I mean, I think we might want to look at a pro bono.
Yeah.
Well, we can figure that out.
Also, you may want to consider that Earth Justice is a legal group. So they are lawyers.
Understood, Ava, but I think for the board, I think we're going to.
That might be a slight conflict of interest.
So I'll jump in to say thank you, Jeremy. So this would be resolution would be to, okay, let's see if I can get this right. Support the special text amendment provided it has legal review by CB7. So that's the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay.
This is Sam.
Great. Thank you, Sam, who's on the committee. And then with that, I would say I would do this by unanimous consent. Right, Jeremy? I'm still doing everything right. So it's been seconded, unanimous consent. And then if anyone has an objection.
If anybody objects to unanimous consent, they should say so. I've heard no dissent.
Great. So that has then passed.
We're going to hire you, Katie, to do the legal review.
Thanks, John. Okay, so in summary, this committee, as voted out, we will bring this to Community Board 7 meeting. I will be very quickly writing up minutes. And so this is for the special text amendment with the condition that as legal review, we'll bring it to the CB7 meeting on Wednesday. And that is the end of our meeting. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. See you soon. Thank you to all the folks who joined and all of our speakers. Hope to see you Wednesday.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the invite. Take care.
Thank you.